and artificial intelligence. And I came here. We had another workshop in Hotel Africana, where we had the EU and other members. In that workshop, we discussed a lot of things concerning clean energy, and I came up with proposals of how we can really bring in data science, machine learning models, and artificial intelligence to enhance what we can do with clean energy. So my coming here, I have come to share with you some of the aspects we have done. Of course, we are doing research with the students who have written papers. We are working with so many partners in developing different aspects of machine learning. And as you come to know, as we progress, you realize that actually this issue of machine learning and artificial intelligence is a new phenomenon. This is the fourth revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, whereby we intend to equip and train people in this latest technology. Uganda is behind, as I will show you. Our friends in Rwanda, our friends in Kenya are doing so well. When you look at their ICT policies, they are promoting machine learning and artificial intelligence. For us here in Uganda, it's still a problem. So I have come to tell you what we should expect. I've come to share with you what we intend to see happening here in Uganda, because as I have told you, we have data. Data is not enough. We have to aggregate data. We have to extract information. It's not only data as I end up, because as you know, some of you, I'm sorry to go a bit in programming. The classical computer programming is that you have your data, you put instructions there, then you have the results. This is different from machine learning. From machine learning, you have the data, then you put on the results. Then you work with data and the results, and you get instructions. The instructions are the models. The model is the instruction. Now, once you have developed the model, you just can't relax. The model will keep on learning, picking up, training, and all these things. So we shall see all these things through clean energy, like as I will show you, on panels of solar panels, wind, things like hydroelectricity power, thermal energy, and the rest. So I can stop there and give my friend, but we shall explore more on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Robert Huber. I'm a GIS advisor, that's Geospatial Information Systems advisor here at the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. My position there is I'm seconded through a GIZ program, GIZ PREP, the Promotion for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency program. And I'm based there within the ministry now for the last 3 years in the GIS unit. And the GIS unit within the ministry mainly supports the planning division to really start planning for the efficient implementation of energy resources throughout the country. So for these planning activities and planning projects, we interface on a geospatial information level with various partners. We've been working with various national electrification strategies and master plans that have been developed by development partners like the one under ERT3, which was a predecessor project to the current World Bank project of Scale Up. Furthermore, we're also looking at some of the topics that our other colleagues have already talked about. So for example, we're also working with some GIZ projects that are specifically looking at the implementation of artificial intelligence and machine learning in the energy space. For example, they're looking at how can we optimize the site selection for mini-grid sites. That's one of the projects that we're currently working on for machine learning. And another platform that we're working with as the ministry, but also specifically through a energy sector GIS working group, which is a working group for GIS professionals within the energy space. So besides us from the ministry, we also have people there from UEDCL, UETCL, UEGCL, UMEME, and Petroleum Authority of Uganda, and the regulator ERA. And with that working group, we're actually working together also with the World Resources Institute on the implementation of Energy Access Explorer, and I'm sure that my colleague from CREEC will touch upon that later a bit more as well. So these are some of the tools that we're utilizing, digital tools that we're utilizing to do the planning in the Ministry of Energy for the implementation of these energy resources. I'll leave it there for now and hand over to Edwina.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Ahamize Edwina. I work as a senior GIS officer at the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development under the Geospatial Planning Unit. But the capacity in which I'm in this panel is in the capacity of the Assistant Commissioner, Technical Planning. Technical planning, as is the case now, the work there is focusing on data-driven approaches to policy formulation and the likes. And some of the activities that include data we've been having, the recent deliverables, the energy transition plan, that required a lot of energy modeling and the likes and deep reliance on data, and as well the ongoing development of the integrated energy resource master plan. Additionally, I'm also a member of the working group, past chair of the working group that Robert spoke of, but I will think restrict my submission to the technical planning support that I offer.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Janet Mwa Anena from UEDCL, project engineer. I'm here sitting in for our Chief Engineering Service Technical Officer, Engineer Protas, who could not be with us here today. So today, briefly, I'll share about digitalization and the distribution network, looking at how far UEDCL has achieved in terms of digitalization and where we hope to go from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introductions. So the stage has already been set. We're going to talk data and what it means that we can use the data for. So just to help us understand, we'll start with the beginning. Kindly help us understand the current situation. And situation of data in the energy sector of Uganda. What are the challenges? What are the milestones? Where can we improve? And have we used this data in implementing policy?
Much. So in the energy sector, for clarity, when we speak of the energy, most times it's mistaken to focus only on the electricity. And also in the sector itself, for quite some time, a lot of effort was put on the electricity sector. And they say that as is, you find we have so much that has been collected and on the electricity side. But on the other forms of energy, the data that exists is not well managed or centralized in as it should be. So the gaps exist mainly on the other forms of energy. If you look at the wind resource, if you look at the other renewables and the likes. But on the electricity sector, as Robert in his introduction mentioned, there were deliberate efforts through the energy sector GIS working group, of which I would say we have a complete network and data available in that space. And so the challenge exists with the other forms of energy. What is there? Its management is still lacking, and it's an area that we are challenged to put in more time and also bring on board. And speaking to how this data has been used in policy formulation, like in my introduction, I spoke to the two most recent deliverables from the ministry, the energy transition plan that spoke to the country's pathways to net zero carbon emissions, and now the ongoing development of the integrated energy resource plan. These are data intensive activities And but at the end of the day, it was the biggest challenge was that most of these policies, the data component was not quite clear how much the reliance on it and the documentation. So the data-driven approaches to inform policy, they form the center of the ministry in the works that we do, and so I would say that is how it has fed into the policy formulations and plans that are being developed now to respond to the question. The decentralization of the data collection, of course, is it's like having an eye on at the grassroots, as you've mentioned. That would indeed bridge the gap that we have in the data completeness, and also existing efforts. I think there was an engagement yesterday that support from our partners GIZ that spoke to the involvement of the district officers at district level to be part of this whole data collection and management process, but would greatly improve and bridge the existing gaps, especially in localizing data to that level, both at district and other levels below that.
Thank you, Adina.
I am talking on behalf of Mary Susan Pablo in this regard, and I may not have available all the knowledge that she has. Because the better we communicate with each other, government, science, practitioners, etc., the better we can also integrate our data information policies. That's, I think, my initial contribution.
Okay. Thank you, Professor. We've heard that Kenya and Rwanda are ahead of us. So over to you, Engineer Sunday. Engineer Sunday, please. We would like to know what policy changes and regulations we could have in place in order to improve our data aggregation, implementation, and also gathering and dissemination in the country so that we are not left behind as a country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Sunday Sugar. I introduce myself at the session. perspective, policy regulatory is looking at the entire spectrum of the energy balance, which includes all forms of energy to the different end users. So the end users are very key in policy and regulation determination. That what is the energy exactly going to be used for? So once we have determined different energy requirements, then the next thing is how do we provide these energy requirements sustainably? Okay, while also shifting from the sustainable consumption of some into sustainable consumption of some. While also shifting from inefficient use into efficient use. While shifting from not clean, clean. Not renewable to renewable. This transition is very key for us, and therefore our policy is informed. That as you integrate renewable energy, you need to be able to understand how best to integrate it. Because integration of renewable energy has limitation. It depends on your grid flexibility, it depends on the available resources, but it also depends on your ability to store, for example, the excess that you're trying to access. So you need to be able to understand how best to introduce those technologies. Now, because you have provided for this in your policy, it's very important that digitalization is enhanced. And therefore, it is a requirement in that case. You're looking at energy efficiency initiatives. You want to improve energy efficiency. It means that in real time, for example, I will tell you that, okay, let me go back to the one, just to give you an example. A wind turbine or a solar panel is generating intermittently. But integrating the power into the grid means you must pick or lose other sources of energy as this. You cannot do that in an analog system. It will be very different. So that will be very important to utilize. So the policy is providing for this, and therefore the strategy is this. If you're doing energy efficiency, you need to know in real time how the different consumption sections, all the different categories of consumers are behaving in their consumption. So you have to go beyond just the figure. You need to understand exactly how is the domestic consumer behaving during the day, during the night. And when you have real-time information on that sort of area, therefore be able to improve on their energy efficiency, you need to utilize the system. And of course, there's the issue of collection, usage. When are people charging for their vehicles? When are they not charging their vehicles? And you need that information in real time. In order for you to be able to do that, among other things. So, in order for you to provide sustainable services, not only in electricity, even heat, gas, petroleum, and others for locomotion, you need data to enable you model how the future will look like, but also be able to interpret the current situation. And this is the very, very important aspect of digitalization. And there are simple physics or simple mathematics. This is simply moving from a largely analog system to a largely digitized system, meaning that there is integration of information, and this information can be mapped against each other and can be interpreted in But you see where we were before this was, there was a fuse that you could plug out and replace with wires. For those of you who are as old as some of us. And you could use, now there's a bit of an improvement, but we need more. So what are we providing through the policy? We're providing for net metering, for example. To do proper net metering, we need smart grids. Smart grids are an example of digitalization. of the network. You're not going to have smart grids without that. We're using SCADA systems to be able to control remotely power plants from wherever you are. You're at the National Control Center, but you're able to see what is happening in different power plants. You're able to switch them on and off. This is a form of digitalization, which is very important. We're providing for electric vehicle integration. And for those of you who work at Amber House and near around Kampala, you see that some petrol stations are already installing charging points. Even at Amber House, we have, what we call charging points where you can take videos. But these are all policy issues that we're dealing with
there's a lot of mention on collecting and managing the data there, but grasping this term of digitalization and enabling the sector to do more with it is something that I feel is still lacking at that level. So I feel like just embracing the digitalization and bringing it further into the higher level policies, I think is would be an enabling factor. Furthermore, we should also be engaging more with other people within other sectors that are relevant to this. For example, Ministry of ICT. I think Ministry of ICT also has a lot of capacity and a lot of, for example, hardware and software, which I mentioned before. But at this point in time, it's unfortunately underutilized. And I think, for example, there's a lot of server capacity and other hardware capacity that could be utilized by a lot of government entities to improve on this digitalization within not only the energy sector, but for the country as a whole.
Thank you very much, Robert. Now, having listened to Robert's presentation, we can see, we can see one of the main challenges in digitalization of data is hardware. Internet. Internet is a challenge. But we should not forget, as we're collecting data, we have to verify this data and make sure it's correct. It's not all about throwing data into the system and saying, this is it. We have to find ways and methods to make sure we have correct data and we're cleaning the data. In line of this, Mr. Paul Asimwe, how viable do you think it is for Uganda to digitalize its national energy resources and systems? Do you know of any resources that have been digitalized so far?
Thank you so much. To answer your question, maybe directly, before I further go into elaborate, I think it's extremely viable that Uganda can digitalize its natural energy resources. And also, reason being also just to touch on many of the points that have been made by many of the moderators here with me today. One of the key themes is integration. Integration, especially across the different government entities. If you're to analyze the Uganda government structure or governance structure, the central government, you see that the different ministries, it is organized in a way that the different ministries are in a way meant to work separately, make decisions independently, but then again, they are supposed to work together in a way. There are some cross-cutting decisions that need to be made together. For example, you have Ministry of Energy that needs to implement primarily maybe energy access. But to implement energy access projects, it needs to understand what are the existing natural resources. It can get that from different other ministries, such as Ministry of Water and Environment, in charge of the natural resources that we have. Under Ministry of Water and Environment, we see that we have other disaggregated agencies. You have NEMA, National Environment Management Authority. You have the National Forest Authority. All these are biomass management authorities that can look at how can help the Ministry of Energy to quantify biomass resources. You also have Ministry of Agriculture, which can play a big role. So, like my colleague Robert talked of, who collects this data, where do they store it, and how do they use it? You find that now each of these different ministries have their own mode of data collection. And it's not easy, say, for the Ministry of Energy to get this data and utilize it in its energy planning projects. One of the ways to achieve this, of course, is through centralization. A step that has already been taken by the GIS working group to come together to look at the different players in the sector that need data for planning. You have UEGCL, you have the Electricity Regulatory Authority, you have the principal engineers under the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. But another question we need to ask, do they have everyone that needs this data for planning? For example, Ministry of Water and Environment, do they have colleagues from Ministry of Agriculture? So we need to, the groundwork has already been laid. for example, in the GIS working group. They also worked with a partner called World Resources Institute to feed into an open source platform that tries to centralize this data. This platform is called the Energy Access Explorer. It already has at least a base level collection of data for the natural resources, but also for energy access in the country so far. As Creek, as I mentioned, that one of our areas is applied research and is trying to see how these different entities can utilize this data. We have made engagements with other ministries that need this platform. For example, when speaking to the Ministry of Health, you find that they also need to know what are the different ways that they can access energy, especially to their health facilities. Ministry of Agriculture has programs such as the agro-industrialization program to try and mechanize, and they also need to know which are the energy sources that can be utilized. So to wrap up my submission, the digitalization of data in the country, one, we look at the different working groups. We need to integrate the different working groups, and we already have a step in the right direction, but just now to analyze internally who is missing from this working group, where is the data they are collecting, and where are we storing it. These different entities, for example, under Ministry of Water and Environment, they already have a repository of a lot of data, weather stations installed all over the place. UEGCL tracks the volumetric flow rate of the different rivers in which they hope to, generate electricity from. Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Agriculture has data on the biomass waste that could be essential to Ministry of Energy, for waste to energy generation. So all this data needs to be centralized and quantified through an open resource platform, as mentioned, called Energy Access Explorer. So yes, I think it's highly viable, and we're already on the right path, but we just need to bring more players, need to integrate the whole sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Another key point for us today in our digitalization is centralization of all the data. As we know, data is available, but now we need a central repository of this data. And to know who's handling this data, how do we handle how this data is being handled? And the only way to do that is to increase the accessibility to hardware and also software. Now, in light of that, Ms. Jeneth, can you please explain to us the beneficial ramifications of digitalizing the country's energy resources and systems, and how they could influence the country's clean energy transition?
Thank you so much. UEDCL being in the last chain when it comes to distributing energy, we deal with vast data because most of the data that is given out, we are the very first people that will have to collect it. So, as we have been moving from the analog to digitalization, we have also, at the distribution sector, we have also not been left out the process of digitalization. We have had some processes that have been put up, but you asked the benefits of this digitalization. When I refer to some of the applications that we have in place and how it has benefited us, it starts all the way from when we look at the technical aspect. Currently, we have the SCADA system that has been implemented at 60%. It has helped us to monitor the network and helped in improving reliability by reducing on the turnaround time to restore supply in case of outages. We have been able to monitor the network, the status of the network, and that has informed us on the decisions on the preventive maintenance that we need to carry out. whether the network needs to be revamped, whether the new equipment is in place. It has also helped to plan for the growing demand in your respective places. The systems have been able to be connected together, talking one to the other. For example, with the SCADA system where we are hoping that with time, we shall be, because right now it's only at 60%, we have the SCADA system that is on, and we have the work management system. So the two of them should be able to cooperate in such a way that when we have samples, it should be able to restore the supply without human interferences. And currently we have an online application app which is being developed. We are hoping that this will end up communicating with our material utilization application to help in management of resources, which also digitalization helps in that. And it also helps in data, the storage of data itself and accessibility. When you are still analog with a lot of paper, at times it becomes so hard to access some of the data. But with the digitalization, it's easier for someone to easily access the data and the storage.
Thank you very much. Now, Dr. Nkaluo, our lead in academia and research and champion in machine learning. Can you please elaborate to us if there's been any research that has forecasted the long-term impacts of energy resources and systems digitalization, as well as your experience with benchmarking from other countries? Thank you.
officials, rather, probably they will inform policies at some point, particularly on areas, because in Uganda, for a long time there has been contention in some of the data that's coming out. Mostly the one for electricity access is always okay, but the one for clean cooking, you see different figures. I don't know how that would be. Also, when we talk about utilization, I know mostly we tend to be inward looking, but we started in the Africa, we promote digital lab projects. Currently, there's a consultant in place who's working towards the East African renewable energy policy, and also a framework for transformative research of renewable energy products and services. Probably, I may talk about the power tools. Maybe the sort of a pool that just trade or even by fuel, something of the sort. I just want to know what are some of the challenges that we can see, and probably some of the solutions that we think that Uganda can be able to benefit from as a result of opening of the borders in terms of trade of energy, energy products, new energy products and services.
Who is it directed to? For you. Who does your question go to, sir?
Sorry, I prefer if there is a question by a member, let him pinpoint that question.
Yes, please. Yeah. To Engineer Sunday.
I don't know whether he grasps there.
No, I'm a seasoned engineer, so I can answer questions in any direction. So there are three movements. There is one movement which says, how do you sustainably use what you have? Be it traditional biomass, which could be, firewood, could be cow dung, could be anything. There is a group which says, fine, before we move you away from the use of your resource, can we make you use it sustainably? And you'll see people promoting certain types of kilns for making charcoal or bricks, or certain types of stoves to help you use that firewood better. So they come to your school and say, no, we're going to build you a stove that will make sure you harness most of the heat that you get from burning the firewood. They have not moved you away from the firewood. They have simply made you use it better to harness the energy more efficiently or more sustainably. Then there's another school, and all these are integrated at some form, which says, you know what, we need to transit you from traditional to maybe secondary, okay? And that group also says, okay, fine, why don't we move you to a briquette instead of using the firewood? Let's bring you to a briquette. Instead of using charcoal, let's move you to a briquette. So they're trying to improve that, okay? And they'll even propose things like LPG, but the connotation is always cleaner than the previous, not necessarily purely clean. Then there is a group that is targeting 100% clean, and they're looking at moving you to electricity. And even within electricity, they're looking at making sure that electricity is generated from very clean sources. So you have these different schools and they're integrated. Now, in terms of regional, it is very easy to organize electricity because there are lines that are crossing boundaries, and you can just simply put meters and you can measure how much is going where and where. You can meet occasionally and say, we can jointly develop a power project, or I'll buy so much from you, and that can easily be metered. It may be difficult to meter traditional biomass, but if you converted it into biofuels, then it is easy to measure it in terms of volumes or in terms of tonnage, and you're saying, okay, so much we're trading this. So now, depending on where your financiers are and who is financing your program, something may move and another may not move. There are schools of thought who are saying, no, it's not clean enough, even though it is cleaner than the previous. So probably we are not going to fund it because it's not as clean as we want it to be. All right? Should we convert biomass, solid biomass, into other forms of biofuels and trade in biofuels? Probably yes, because they will be cleaner, they have a higher energy content, so you need less of them to give you the same output in terms of end users. But it's about funding. So there's a way in which, as a person who has sat and participated in East African Power Pool, I'll tell you there are many interests just beyond the electricity. There's the interest for the resources themselves, the water and the others that may result into this power pool not functioning as efficiently as it should have functioned. So yes, in Uganda we have programs, to develop biofuels, and I think GIZ and the others have worked hard towards this, but we also have programs under Renewable Energy Department where biofuels is one of the targets. And if you look at our energy policy, you'll find the biofuels there. That now brings me to the data. In order for you to develop very well, you need to collect the data. You need to be able to, over time, clean it up, and so that the results that the data give you can help you predict the trade and the others, so that you're able to attract the private sector to participate. Because the private sector they hate fields that are not really well understood, because they don't want to take the risk of being the first one to put both feet in a pool of water. So normally it's government that must take that effort to first build, collect data, clean it, and have data that can be used to do business, that can be used to predict the viability of a business. Or if you can give good tariffs at the start, then in that way you can cushion the risk of investment, if it's the case of. But for electricity, we have provided for generation of electricity from other forms of biofuels. I talked about waste to energy earlier, and if you look at our program, we are open to having that. But in the petroleum area, I've understood there's a bit of blending. They are looking at blending with biofuels. So there is a national program to do that. But is it regional? No, I don't think it has reached that level of regional. Why? Because I think nations must first be comfortable where they are standing before they can authoritatively speak. Of course, there are international organizations that tend to bring us together to discuss what energy transition should look like for both country and region. But they are not at a sophisticated level that the East African Power Pool is, for example, because electricity is much easier to be able to transmit. Now, about the census and how we are using the data for the census. Of course, census gives you a platform of many. The main one is, of course, the demography of how many Ugandans are here and how many will be here in 10 years' time when the next census is due, and then breaks down into gender and different income types and then different household levels, regions and everything. So you can use that for electricity access scale-up. It's very good information for electricity access scale-up, because as you go into a region to increase on the access, then you know that I am dealing with this type of demography. This, in terms of age and in terms of gender and in terms of, of other things. But most importantly also under the current, we have a program, we have a project, Electricity Access Scale-Up project under the Ministry of Energy, where one of the parameters for success is gender mainstreaming, or how much we are measuring as far as how many female-led households or how many females have benefited in terms of connections, or in terms of, and of course, how many refugees and the others. So the data from the census is very important to inform the results of this electricity access scale-up project, because it will help to guide us on how to best program our movement. But this is a national-wide program, and it will be able to help us to measure those parameters. But a lot still needs to be done in terms of regional integration beyond just electricity, because you find that lorries and lorries of charcoal are crossing the border to go to other countries from Uganda. Okay? People come and buy it from here in bulk until that ban. Before that ban for charcoal from coming from certain areas, it was obvious. You lack it here, but it's crossing the border and it's going to another country. And that is not properly mentioned. I know under the biofuels division, bioenergy division, there is something to do with the charcoal policy or something like that has been developed for this. So, my colleagues might answer the questions that I have not answered, but there's still a lot of effort that needs to be done to convert data that has been collected into actual usage and into results. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer. So now we'll take 3 questions.
I'm going to address on two concepts of machine learning. So some members, because now when he is asking, he's an expert in data, or he knows information about data science, and I'm replying to an audience whereby people are not. So I'll briefly, please give you your IT, but I have my contacts. But we have two methods. There's what we call transfer learning. But if you are at undergraduate level, you may not understand it better. But transfer learning is simply, for example, if you have a very good programmer in Java, you don't have to have really too much to read about Python, because Java has got those constructs and syntax that are related to Python. So you use the aspects. You use the aspects or the philosophy, the intuition of Java programming, and then you like the loops, like the selections, like the sequential flow. So transfer learning is one of those aspects whereby even if you don't have data aspect in one area, you can use the knowledge of the trend in some data set for another set. That is one. Number two, there's what we call ensemble modeling. This is an advanced aspect of machine learning. Now, ensemble modeling is an aspect whereby you have one model and then you have another model. For example, like the first stage models. The first stage models, they are very quick models. They can detect and give you results in one run. Like YOLO, you look once. Those of you who have heard of YOLO algorithm, it's very good. It's the first stage. It is very fast, but it's not accurate. But then we have the stage 2 model, whereby we have, it is not very fast, but it's so accurate. When it is detecting, it looks at the neighborhoods, but doesn't give you the result. It gives you the result in the second stage. Now, like for example, CNN. You have heard about CNN. Those are the neural algorithms. So you can use modeling, ensemble modeling, and transfer learning as advanced concepts of data problems. If you have problems with data problems, you can't access here, because the research is not about snapshots. A research is a trend. Research is a trend. It's a systematic investigation. You investigate and look at the trends and see what is happening. Then maybe the other gentleman, sharing of data. Leave alone those advanced concepts I'm talking about ensemble modeling and transfer learning. The problem is ICT, I was telling you, if we can have a law, if we can act a law which empowers the Ministry of Finance, and we have some of the laws, by the way. There is a law about, is it public knowledge, but these are not actually, they are not implemented. They are not implemented. But we have even a problem, I was telling you. The executive, which is supposed to keep the law, at times doesn't. We have the law about public access of documents, that if you want to go and access public documents, like you know recently, URA collected a lot of money, and then they went and they had a surplus, and they shared the surplus. People want to know how much money they collected. They don't want to tell us. You see? These are the things. And we're supposed, by that law, so we don't have a will. The executive doesn't have a will, or whether it has a will or it is playing politics, we don't know. The laws are there, others are not enforced. Then even we lack even the aspect of knowing who is in charge of these laws which are being put there. So members, so there are legal aspects of how we can share data. Even the data policy, the national data policy is not there. You see, that's why we had these issues of the census. You saw some of those things on social media. This one is saying, how much can I give the Bagisho? I use square root, I use body mass, I multiply by 5. You see? Because, I mean, there is no, people are doing things out of their own way. So we need a robust law, and then in advanced concepts, we can use ensembling, we can also use transfer learning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For me, I'll respond to the question of the GIS student from Makerere. The lack of standards for geospatial data is indeed definitely an issue that we're also seeing and we're trying to tackle now. At least for in the energy sector, as mentioned before, we have established a GIS working group, energy sector GIS working group. This is a working group that consists of GIS experts from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, the UEDCL, UETCL, UEGCL, UMEME, the Petroleum Authority of Uganda, and the regulator ERA. So we come together, and the core of this working group was really the harmonization of the geospatial information within the sector. Because we also saw, the working group also saw that this was an issue, a challenge, and that even trying to exchange data within the sector, geospatial data within the sector, was something that was not harmonized, and that people would need to go through the lengthy ways, and also then found out that the data is not compatible. So actually 2 years ago, we established a standardized data format in which at least the working group will be sharing the data. And therefore also, if you go to the website of the Energy Sector GIS Working Group, which is energy-gis.ug, this is a place where you can freely download its open data, the harmonized data set from these working group members. So you will find it there. You just simply fill out a form saying what your intention is to use this data for, and then you have free access to the data, no payments or whatsoever. So that's at least from the energy sector side what we're trying to do to harmonize geospatial data there. Now, for the naming semantics that you mentioned and the harmonization of and the sharing of geospatial data at the national level, this is indeed a far bigger challenge. And we've actually seen that there's been some big developments there from the National Planning Authority. NPA has actually developed a concept for a national spatial data infrastructure. Unfortunately, this document has now been already a few years old and has not really been pushed for adoption and for implementation. So the concept is definitely there. People have been thinking about it. There were a lot of working groups. People were involved in seeing how this would be established in the most efficient way. But unfortunately, at this point in time, this document is just laying around and is still waiting for national approval and for adoption. Now, Edwina, did you want to add anything from the data policy side?
I think what you've presented should suffice. On to, in all discussion, what we get to appreciate that there's been a shift in the data needs. At a given time, what one was interested in was to know what is the grid footprint. But as from the planning perspective, as you get into detailed planning and energy modeling, you get to appreciate that that is no longer sufficient. The network is there, yes, if there's a conductor. What is its make? What is, so there's that, so that contributes to having big data that requires, of course, high computing capabilities and the skill set. So with this shift in the data needs, and because people have become aware how much can be done with the data. Many times we had data that was laying obsolete. You find you're only utilizing one attribute of that data. And also with the interaction with different modeling platforms and the likes, you get to see that the challenge we had was most data that we pick from whichever level was a bit, we are speaking of data aggregation, but look at this scenario where that which you're accessing in raw form is already aggregated, yet you'd want to get from the simplest, the lowest level of that data, so that you bring it in and aggregate it to inform whatever it is you're working on. So that presents a big challenge and also an opportunity. Because if you go to the Chambogo lecture, it is now an opportunity for application of such technologies. And yeah, so there was a question addressed to the office I'm representing. How are we involving the private sector in the data collection? At the ministry or as technical planning as such, you're looking at inclusive and coordinated planning. And how business is that in any activity, I'll use a case, what is the ongoing? We've had the energy transition plan rolled out. We now have the integrated energy resource master plan. Key is integrated, so you're looking at all these other plans have to be considered, all resources and the likes. So how we engage the private sector, first step is in the stakeholder mapping, identifying who is from government, who is from this institution, and then also against that map stakeholder, what is their contribution in all this? Remember, we are saying these are data intensive analysis that you have to do to inform all this. So identifying that from this private sector, this is the potential source of this information. So once we identify those people, there are working groups where they're invited to participate at the end of the day. And then also, every stage of the activity, there's a validation exercise. Because we're trying to localize as much as possible all these models we are relying on to the Uganda case. So if I'm speaking about Bugisu area, it should really speak the truth. I think in this whole discussion we're talking about standardized trustworthy data. So it's only as good as it represents the area of study. So you get these members on board, they participate in validation exercises, and then also the other part, let's say, the mini-grid developers, I think most of them fall within the private. So getting into conversation with them, and then they also contribute to this. Because a document that will be published it has to be acceptable. That means these people have to participate. So efforts are ongoing. So I would appeal to the delegates, as and when you're invited, do come, because we do identify who are the focal people, the contact people that will contribute to all this. But yes, that is an area we do appreciate. And then of course also as a ministry looking at these other policies, engineers spoke of I think the term was engendering, where you're looking at the gender component, meaning someone from that space has to come and contribute that to such. And those are also, I think also every year there's an appraisal to see how much of the gender component has been included in your project. So the commitments also that the ministry has also, in a way, emphasizes the need to engage the private sector, and that is how business is done in that respect. I submit.
Thank you. As a rejoinder to the private sector, you are the ones who have left government to lead. You look at other countries, Amazon, Google, Facebook and the others. They are leaders in data collection. Government comes to buy it from them. Tell us, please give us some additional information. So as a private sector, you can take lead in data collection. Don't wait for government, because government's data collection is targeted towards something. Maybe they want to find out how many people are in Bugisu, like Dr. here said. So they will model Bugisu and say, well, we cannot count up in the mountains. Let's build a model to predict how many guys are there. But you can lead, because you are dealing daily with people. They come to you for services, if it is health, if it's financial institutions, if it's agriculture, if it's education, you have the first-hand information. So lead, collect this information, make sure you authenticate it, you have a clear guideline that you're following on how you're collecting it and maintaining it and cleaning it, and you become a leader in data collection instead of waiting for government to call you to make a contribution. Thank you very much.
In the interest of gender balance, we'll take one question.
Thank you for that question. Hope I've got it quite well. Because saying once the research comes out sufficient, I'd like to translate like if it is indeed reliable. How well can it be trusted? Right? In that.
Sorry, I think she meant it doesn't communicate to the target audience. Can they interpret it? Can they understand it? Yes.
Okay. I will refer to the first submission from the professor. And I think his point was about translation. You have the data, it progresses to knowledge and then information and all that. So you're saying how can it be interpreted by all these people? Dissemination of this information. Of course, you're looking at the communication channels of communicating all this. So the ministry in itself has up to a communication and information division where we do have, of course, there's the website where all these things are published. In English mostly. I'll get to the other part of the local content. But then also there are these regional engagements where we have the stakeholder engagement and awareness of what is happening. Let's say if I come to Bugisu, there will be someone who will do the Bugisu, in English, and then also translate to the language spoken in that area. Of course, the more you go down to translate the detail, you communicate the summaries. But where there are any gaps, I think the flyers and all this and all these programs, I think it's engagement of the local leadership or the people in that community, so that in their best way possible, they can relay this to their people. Because one would tell you, this group of people, once we are over in Marua Port, it's where whatever you're sharing will really be absorbed in. So that close communication to the lowest level possible, that's what the one way of channeling this information from up to the lower part. Yeah, so there's a consideration of all, I would say, ethnities and translation to whichever language that best communicates to them. But we have a fully fledged section that handles the dissemination of this. Yeah, please.
The first language is price. That's the very first language is price. Even if I gave you free connection like we're going to do under the electricity access scale-up project for one pole and no pole connection, if I don't give you the affordable unit cost, you will not use the electricity. So the first local language is how much? Shilingi. Okay? Now, if we want you to transit in sections, because electricity I brought the last mile connection, it is there, the electron is right at your house, you just have to buy the yaka. But if the yaka is too expensive, you'll stop buying at some point and go back to Tadova or go back to other forms of lighting. Now, if I wanted you to transit from charcoal to briquettes, I must make briquettes accessible. If you need to take a taxi, go to the trading center to buy briquettes, then you're not going to use it. You rather use your charcoal or your firewood that's nearby. So the second language is accessibility. Is it easily accessible? And where can I find it? And this is one of the challenges we are facing with LPG. We have distributed gas cylinders. People fill for the first time. But where do you refill from in the rural areas? Must you travel to Kampala, wait for a relative when they come for Christmas to refill for you? So the second language is accessibility. It's very important that whatever you bring is accessible. The third language is quality. That if I have given you a solar home system, or if I've encouraged you to go to a solar lantern, how long does the solar lantern survive? You have invested your money, you have bought a solar lantern in a nearby shop, but the quality is, poor quality from wherever it came from. It managed to make its way through the National Bureau of Standards. and ended up in your home. The day that solar lantern stops working, you cease to replace it because first of all you're disappointed that it didn't last as long as you were told on the menu. Oh, it has a warranty, it takes so long. So we need to improve the quality of the energy service so that people can easily relate. Say, I bought that solar lantern, but I've used it for 2 years and it has served me well at the right. I can still charge it. I also once bought some solar lanterns that used to be sold outside some common petrol station. I will not mention the name here. I took them to the farm. They didn't last long. I never replaced them. Yet I'm an energy expert. So that language of quality is key. So you need to ensure affordability. You need to ensure accessibility. You need to ensure quality. And that way you'll be speaking to everyone in whatever language. You don't even need to interpret. If somebody can easily afford, can easily access, and it's of quality, believe you me, they will integrate with it. I submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer. Now to close the session, there are gentlemen here with burning questions, 2 questions.
Amazon.com. You can go there and buy and go to Amazon.com. You don't need GPUs. Even if you have a very slow Amazon, will give you everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we hear from our private sector players? Professor? You answer this question.
No, I think the answer was right. I mean, there is, this translation from data to information to knowledge, which I have mentioned, is not mainly a matter of this hardware, which you can buy in the cloud and so on. That is not the problem. When I talk about transforming data to information and information to knowledge, I'm considering that those bits and bytes of numerical data that we may collect does not create value immediately. We need to be able to interpret it, to understand it, and that requires, for instance, education or competence in a practical manner. And then I have an information, okay, the price is going up or the calculation is like this, but still I need knowledge also to apply, and that also shows that our knowledge ecosystem is quite complex, and the storage capacities is the least critical factor. It is the intelligence of creating value from out of this, and that requires, as has been confirmed by all the partners, it requires collaboration, because no one has the whole understanding of what we need. Actually, even the question how to reach those local people. You know, we have scientists here, but do the scientists really know how this reaches the last mile? They don't know usually. They don't even know how to speak to those local people. We need those extension people, we need those local people, we need this requires collaboration. And I would like to let's say, conclude what I have started to say in the beginning. We need a knowledge partnership that brings people from government, from science, very much from the private sector together, and think about which knowledge is needed to advance in specific use cases that he has mentioned, specific use cases. We don't need to develop knowledge only for the knowledge. We need to support specific challenges that we have in our policies. That requires a knowledge agenda so that we are working towards strategic knowledge goals. Do we have a knowledge agenda yet? I haven't heard it. We need to have a knowledge agenda for renewable energy, and I'm so happy that my colleague, professor, has said so many things about the general challenges that we have in the Ugandan knowledge sector. Because what he said about education, science, etc., is not renewable energy specific. It is knowledge specific to the country as a whole. So we need to have a knowledge agenda for the country, then we can build on a knowledge agenda for renewable energy. So we need to advance our capacities in general, how to learn, how to research, how to share knowledge, how to advance our knowledge skills. That is a very general, not renewable energy specific, a general task that we need to work on. But then we have our renewable energy specific challenges that we need to address in our renewable energy knowledge partnership and have a renewable energy knowledge agenda. Then we can try to aggregate our efforts through a knowledge hub that can foster the collaboration through communication channels, etc., and also aggregate and link the data. You know, when we talk about linking the data, we are usually not thinking about one repository that holds every data, because the data will continue to stay with different institutions. It is a total illusion that we may aggregate all the data in one repository. That's not possible, not useful. That is an illusion. What we can do is to develop a meta layer, and I call this a knowledge graph, that can identify, here is a data there is a data here, and it understands the data and can link it either through APIs or whatever. So we need linked data, not have everything centralized in one repository. It's completely a dream. So we need to link the data, and in order to make value of the linked data, we need a semantic meta layer. That is also a bit technical, but however. A knowledge hub for renewable energy can, let's say, serve this purpose. And it is to a certain extent a meta initiative. So, yeah, that is my idea. Transforming data to information to knowledge is not a hardware problem. It is a matter of intelligence. How do we organize, structure the whole knowledge ecosystem of renewable energy? And the first thing that we need to do is to work together. That requires a culture of mutual appreciation, trust, openness to collaborate, to work with each other. So, yeah, you may wonder, what does culture have to do with data? But I tell you, without the culture of knowledge sharing, we will not integrate our data. So there are many things that we need to do, and I hope that we will be able to work together in a knowledge partnership, develop a knowledge agenda, create a knowledge hub, and also succeed to have this meta layer that will really help us to integrate data and perform better. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to add on what Professor has said, the issue of collaboration. I don't think this challenge, we should leave it only to the government to communicate the benefit of a clean energy source or appliance to the end user. The gentleman over there asked, how does private sector come in? If private sector wants to sell a clean energy source or a solar system, government has merely created an enabling environment for you to enter the market and now communicate the benefits of this clean energy appliance. I can give you one example. At CREEC, we also collaborated with the Ministry of Energy to formulate the e-cooking policy. In this is just to make the end user understand first how can pressure cookers, be more beneficial than using traditional cooking technologies and fuels such as maybe charcoal and and firewood. We had to analyze some of the, of course, some of the effects that touch on the consumers directly, such as price, like the engineer mentioned. How much do you spend on charcoal to prepare a kilogram of beans? How much would you spend on LPG to prepare the same kilogram of what? Of beans? How much would you spend on electricity to prepare the same kilogram of what? Of beans. We got that research. Now, how do we communicate it to the end user? This is through the collaborations to do like demonstrations, the last mile demonstrations. Even me as a person who is working at Creek, I might be outside demonstrating for others when in my household they are using what? Charcoal. Now, I have to go also back to my what? Household. You as a student who is also informed and learned, in your household you also have a what? A role to play towards this clean energy transition. So just the government can only do so much, even as we need to come in and play our role. Thank you.
We'll have parting words for Ms. Anina in a minute.
Thank you so much. A lot has been shared. I don't want to spoil what has already been said, but just in conclusion, when it comes to digitalization, I have to mention that ICT is an enabler of our services, and it goes a long way in improving the services, the reliability, the efficiency at which we service the consumers. But although these, when we talk of digitalization and this application, they have to be user-friendly so that people can easily adopt them. The last panelist talked of private sector players, where somebody asked about it. I have to mention that during this year, most of the services that we have done, and most of the applications were designed in-house. However, there's still a lot that needs to be done with digitalization, to do with the monitoring of the network, to do with the real-time collection of data, and we are open to the public, we are open to private partnership with people that can, with the people pertaining research and design that can bring in this information that we shall need to improve on the services that we deliver to the Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We've come to the end of this session. It has been a pleasure. I hope you've taken home some useful information, and when you go home you can think about this concept more and think about ways you can apply digitalization. We have come to the end of the session. Thank you very much. Panelists, stay behind for a group photo, please. Huh? The what? We're here tomorrow. I